Okay, excellent. Welcome, everybody. This is the VANTEC meeting, and this is one of our themed meetings. We've been holding these monthly meetings since April 1999, so we've been around for a while, and we're really glad to see familiar faces and some new faces. And this month, we are featuring Agrifood Tech Investments. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Frank Lefflar, who will host this sessions. Then we will meet some great companies and great people in the agri-food tech business. So Frank, over to you.
Thank you, Thelzel, and welcome everyone. This is the first time actually that we host this event across Western Canada. Although it is our fifth time that we do this, we really wanted to help create a more connected and collaborative community across Western Canada. My name is Frank Lefflar. I'm the marketing and partnership lead at VANTEC, and I'm also an EIR at Foresight and a member of the Foresight AgriNext team. VANTEC is an angel network of independent angel investors and funds. We've been active since 1999 and get together on the first Wednesday of every month. We'll see pitches from investor-vetted companies, meet with founders, and support them on their journey. Today, I'm your host for the first hour of this meeting with a presentation and panel discussions, and my colleague Thelzel will lead the second part that starts at 4 o'clock, the investor meeting. We have a full agenda, so I'm going to keep it short to leave more time for presenters and panels. Wendy, could you please launch our first poll? Before we kick things off, I want to thank the people that have been great to help organize this event. Angela Bravo, manager of AgriNext program at Foresight, and James Freeman, tech entrepreneur and fellow angel investor with a passion for Agtech based in Edmonton, Alberta. We are grateful for the support from the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, the Government of Alberta, the Government of Canada, and our event partners, Foresight, AgriNext, Impact United, and Raymond James. And that brings us to our first presenter, Steve Hansen. Steve is an analyst at Raymond James. He's also been very helpful to a number of companies that presented at VANTEC, and he has a really good grasp of what is going on in agri-food tech investment in Canada and the world. He graciously agreed to share his knowledge and insights on investment trends in Canada and the world. So let me pass the screen over to Steve.
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it. Okay, thanks for the time, everybody. Look, so my name is Steve Hansen, equity analyst with Raymond James. As Frank suggested, I cover the broader agriculture and ag tech landscapes for the firm. My day job is really focused on predominantly covering public equities, so large names like a Nutrien or an Ag Growth you might be familiar with. But I've also been spending an increasing amount of my time over the past 5 years with smaller private ag tech companies that are in that in growth mode. And it's been a lot of fun, frankly. I've got 10 minutes here this morning, so I'm going to go fairly quickly through a few different slides, really just with the goal of giving you a sense for some of the broader investment trends we're seeing out there in the landscape, as well as some of the strategic activity that's been quite influential in providing exits and liquidity for different companies. So we'll get into that here as we go. Starting at 30,000 feet, this is really just a chart that helps illustrate that private capital has been flooding into the sector now for effectively a decade. You can see here we've got a 45% compound annual growth rate. That included 2020, I would note, despite the onset of the pandemic. And while the data is still rolling in here through this year, I would just note we're on track for another record year. So all things considered, continue to see strong inflows. Now, as the chart suggests, I do like to point this out, that this is quite a broad encompassing data set that includes probably one of the more liberal definitions of agri-food tech in general. It includes both upstream ag tech, which would be more traditional on-farm growing related activities, as well as the downstream side, which is more into right down into the grocery restaurant space. Now, I just like to start here though, because I think it provides probably perhaps the broadest lens of the sector. However, most of my comments here going forward now will be focused predominantly on that upstream vertical, which I think most people associate more closely with ag tech. A couple of key points to note here. First, deal flow was very brisk last year, again, despite the pandemic, roughly 150 deals per category across the landscape. Second, the bulk of deals are still relatively small. Again, median deal size, roughly $2 million in 2020. So again, quite small across roughly 2,200 transactions. That said, we are noticing very clearly that we're starting to see a number of large, almost brute force type bets coming into the sector that are really starting to skew some of the deal sizes, or the median deal sizes, up quite a bit. You can see them here in some respects. And this includes a number of deals that would be, in the 100 to $200 to $300 million range, even in some cases. And I say brute force just because, it's really making big bets early on platform type transactions. And this is, of course, the same trend that's making unicorns increasingly common across the sector. Just to touch on a few of the key emerging themes, or the strong emerging themes we've been seeing for a number of years now, and some of the different sub-verticals. On the left is the innovative food space. This largely captures the plant-based protein and now cellular agriculture space, where we've started to see some of those really big bets emerge over the past couple of years. I've highlighted a few here just on the bottom to give you a sense for some of the recent deals in particular that we've been seeing. Left Farms, Good Meat, and Perfect Day. The Canadian Pension Plan, I would note, is one of the notable lead investors at Perfect Day for a sense, and you can see the size of that deal here. On the right is controlled environmental ag, indoor growing in effect. This predominantly includes, companies looking to localize indoor growing or leafy green production, in particular, microgreens in some cases, at the localized sort of close to end market, if you will. But it does also include other things being grown indoors, whether it's mushrooms or even insects now for alternative proteins. And that category has really started to see some momentum here, as you can see. And that also includes some new public exits that I'll highlight here again in a moment. Just again, carrying on the theme aspect of it all, biotech has become a really strong platform as well. I would caution you a little bit on this one, only because a lot of these platforms are very broad. So they certainly have ag-specific applications, but they also move into healthcare, life sciences, and a number of other applications as well. And that's just the nature of some of these new biotech platforms that we're seeing. Really big bite-sized transactions happening in the space. And then on the right-hand side, we've got farm robotics and automation. Now, this is still a smaller category in general. Like you see here, we're only talking $320 million last year. But I wanted to flag it because automation, labor constraints, all the different themes you probably hear about on a regular basis are becoming very common. And we have seen a number of exits and interesting transactions just in the last several months here. And so I think that's one to watch here going forward. I think you're going to continue to see strong momentum. So this slide now is getting into sort of the strategic activity across the landscape. And I apologize because it's a little bit busy, but the intention here is just to give you a sense for, really the fact that the largest bellwether firms in ag, what we call big ag, these companies have not been idle. They've been very active. In fact, they've been active acquirers of some of the best technologies out there, really to complement their own existing platforms. As the slide suggests, there's been some debate, I think, perhaps over which transaction sparked all of this this sort of trend, if you will. A lot of people like to point to the Climate Corp transaction back in 2013. It was just under $1 billion, surprised many. But I also like to point out the Granular transaction in Blue River, that was DuPont and Deere, respectively, having two large-sized platform deals that have really kicked off this activity level we've been seeing here thus far. And so would just make the point here that we do see this trend continuing, but I would caution a little bit on the big size deals. The big platform bets have largely been made. I'll show you in a moment, but the large, again, big ag companies have largely made big bets thus far. And so I think the tuck-in activity is probably going to be more common going forward. But for any emerging player, we're still talking, tens of millions of dollars for transactions. So that's still certainly a very nice exit for anyone involved. This is another way to describe the same chart that I just described to you. But what it does, it gives you a sense for who's acquiring what. And so I like to show this just because it gives you a sense for, at the different individual levels of the value chain. And we just loosely describe these as tier 1, tier 2 for equipment, and then input manufacturers. And I'll show you some retailers in a moment, but it just gives you a sense for what they've been going after. The tier 1 players like Deere, which I've already mentioned, have been quite active lately. I mentioned the Blue River transaction already as one of those platform bets. Bear Flag is a very recent transaction they've done. And would note now we're starting to see interesting combinations in that, here's an example where you've got CNH acquiring Raven for its autonomous platform recently, a group that had already been quite active in the technology side of things. If we move one layer down in the value chain, This just gives you a sense for the retailers, the likes of Nutrien, which I mentioned earlier that I cover, as well as some of the other players. But it also includes many what I'll call the new non-traditional acquirers. So these are the new players to the space. We loosely call them big tech, big ag tech, and new strategic. And I would just flag here TELUS Ag, of course, which is a local firm that's been quite active across multiple verticals, as you can see here. But I'd also highlight Farmers Edge, which is also a Canadian company that's gone public and has been acquisitive, the likes of Farmers Business Network. I've only included the one sort of pure tech transaction here because FBN has actually been quite acquisitive in a number of other areas, but on the tech side specifically, you can see what they've done here. And Indigo is becoming a very prominent player now in the carbon space, if you've been following any of those developments. This is a slide I like to show just because it really demonstrates that it's not just big ag or big tech acquiring small guy. You're seeing a lot of transactions across the landscape of other smaller independent firms. And so, we've seen a number of these just in the last year, and if a number of them highlighted here. Predominantly, I think the goal or the effort here is for companies that are seeking really to get some sort of sense of scale, new capability, or perhaps even geography, typically with a big focus on new customer acquisition. I think the one aspect of all of this, one lesson I would argue through all this and watching this is I think the path to market is something that's often not considered and is often left far too late for startups to consider. It's very difficult to get to market, even if you have a really good mousetrap. And so some of these efforts are just that. It's basically accumulating acres or accumulating customers to allow for better market access. And, I'll just play hometown favorite for a minute here and just highlight Soileos because they've done a very good job. Some of the participants in the earlier annual events here would note them, and they've been quite active in the last 9 months. 3 transactions, the biggest one being over $100 million here with Ag World just a couple of months ago. That transaction got them international exposure, and it also did expand their product set quite notably. Now, as I think I also mentioned, unicorn sightings are increasingly common here in the space. I think market valuations just in general, frankly, are way up, whether it's the public markets or the private markets. But when you get the tsunami of capital flowing into any space, like I showed at the outset, valuations go up. And so here's just a sense for some of the players we track quite closely. Would note there that initially, I think these things tend to come in waves. Early on, it was Biotech and CEA that captured a lot of the attention. The green here and the blue. We've seen a big surge of late, as I mentioned, in innovative food, which again is really that alternative protein and cellular ag having been really common of late. We've seen some big transactions in that space in the last little while. And then, of course, just as again as the natural byproduct of all this, we are seeing public market exits on the rise. And so this is just a handful of the transactions or the players that we watch now in the public markets quite closely. With a few more on the way here, would note via the SPAC route. The SPAC has been a very popular way of getting to market quickly in the last 10 to 15 months. Not all have been successful, I would note. There's been a couple that have actually failed and gone back to private market capital recently, but just making the point that a lot of these have been successful and we're seeing in the public markets. But just to close out, I would just say, I think a lot of times, entrepreneurs and people who have got ambition think the public market is the only route. But I just would caution you, pick your path wisely, make sure you're ready. I think readiness is something that people underestimate for the public markets. And this just demonstrates that there's been a pretty shaky start for a lot of companies out of the gate. It's not to suggest that they don't have good underlying technology or footings and they won't do well going forward. But as you can see here, the pattern has been more top down to the right as opposed to the other direction. I would point out one of the hometown favorites, again, that's done quite well has been Cubic Farms. That's one of the names we do cover in the public realm today here in Canada. So that's just a quick overview, Frank. I think I'm on my time, so I think I'll cut it off there. But if anyone's got any questions to follow up, wanted to look at the data in more detail or want to copy the deck, I'm happy to provide.
Thank you so much, Steve. Excellent. Great to see all this amazing progress in the sector. Okay, and that brings us to our first panel. but it looks like my screen is misbehaving. Here we go. So first panel, we'll discuss the importance of having a connected and collaborative agri-food tech community across Canada. On their journey from incubation to acceleration and scale up, companies need to find the right support for them as they validate their technology, refine their business model, find product market fit, and scale their business for a global market. Having a connected and collaborative agri-food community across Canada is key for success and the speed at which companies can scale. This panel is made up of people and organizations that help companies on this journey. Jason Bradley is the Manager of Strategic Partnerships at Old College. He will lead this panel with Kerry Wright, CEO of the Canadian Agri-Food Automation and Intelligence Network, Carolee Gerrits, VP Strategy and Business Development at Protein Industries Canada, and Todd Orman, Director Agriculture Solutions at TELUS Business. Jason, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Frank. Thanks all for having this great event. It's a place I spend a lot of time in my everyday role at Olds College Smart Farm, seeing startups come in and doing applied research on the smart farm and working with some of our corporate strategics. So when I think about what we want to cover today, the question to me is, how do we create a more collaborative agri-food or ag tech innovation ecosystem, one that removes the silos that are there and one that's based on true co-opetition? That sounds like a academic kind of word, but it's a real thing. And it's something that I'm seeing more of. And we've got a group that can really, I think, help us to understand that. So how do we move from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset is where I think we need to really move to. So I want to start a little bit with the big picture around themes like having a collaborative agri-food ecosystem around foundational and applied research, that early to mid-stage investment and acceleration and commercialization of some of our companies. So in terms of that big picture, Todd, I'm just wondering, in what ways do you see the corporate strategics helping to grow, helping to support, helping to fund the development of the agri-food and ag tech ecosystem?
Well, I think, so I'm from the TELUS standpoint, and I've spent the last 3.5 years with TELUS Ag. So I was the first ag guy in TELUS Ag. So some of those acquisitions that Steve showed up on the screen, I was a big part of those. From a TELUS perspective, I think we see very much that the world is changing. The consumer is going to start looking at where their food comes from. We recognize there's a need for this connected ecosystem. That connected ecosystem will need to have a bit of a collaborative approach to it. So I think when you go down this path, and even in my past history, I at one point was a VP of product at Farmer's Edge. We did have a thought around that you were going to have this controlling world around data. I think when you start thinking about this world going forward, we are going to have to start thinking about the right regulatory environments and collaborative environments that we have to start thinking about how we move data back and forth. No one player is going to actually control the marketplace on data or on solutions. And thus we'll have to make sure that we have the right environment. And that in ag, I've always felt that there's a combination here of public policy and commercial sides that have to work together on this. So that collaboration between the public policy, institutions like Olds College and industry will probably drive that.
So thanks, and really it's been interesting to see how TELUS has been helping that to occur since the advent of the move into agriculture. So moving on, Carolee and Kerry, I'd like you to talk about R&D as it relates to startups and SMEs and M&Es that are innovating and developing technology. So Kerry, I'm going to start with you. Help us to understand how important it is for players, so for the startups, for those SMEs, those M&Es, and those post-secondaries, to be completely collaborative on their projects, even before they start to look for funding from organizations like yours.
Yes, thanks, Jason. And, really, I I guess the N in CAIN, Canadian Agri-Food Automation and Intelligence Network, you're probably glad we call it CAIN, is really about that network ability. And we are funding platform through Innovation Science Economic Development. We were awarded $49.5 million to help really move forward the Agtech platform. And really we think of it as a hand up. And within that, where we're oriented is that we require 2 SMEs to be involved in our project. So for me, what I really like about this platform is it really builds in the relevance of, it's just not the research sitting on a shelf, it's actually taking it and an SME is identifying that it's important to them and relevant to them to move forward. Now, in terms of that networking, we do really encourage academia, other researchers, other professionals be a part of their team. So we do hope they think about it, Jason, before they head our way, but that's also part of the piece that CAIN can play and the other networks, as Carolee, I'm sure will mention, is that we're able to, through our network, also help to build those robust teams. And we're finding that those collaborations are really setting the stage for success later on down the road. So as they collaborate and discuss among themselves and create their projects, it not only helps the project at that time, but also its success going forward.
So I know I'm supposed to be moderating, not commenting, but I'll just throw in that from the privilege point I've had on the smart farm as it started, back in 2017, the collaborations that are already established before some of those groups, those partner groups have come to the smart farm, they're the ones that seem to get their problem statement best identified. They access funding, non-dilutive funding, sort of the fastest and the most efficiently. Their projects get implemented on the smart farm really well. So there's an affirmation of that I see in time.
Yeah.
So Carolee, from your perspective at Protein Industries Canada, what are some of these folks missing, and what should they be focusing on? Like, what are you seeing in the real world as they're coming to you for looking for these types of funding within the ecosystem? What are they missing? What should they be focusing on?
Well, I'd say, similar to Carrie, we have rules that are within our funding program that require collaboration. And there's a requirement that one of the companies be a Canadian SME. And I think just the fact that we have a program that incents some conversations that might not otherwise take place encourages groups to think about, well, how could we work together and how could we come together, and what's the win-win benefit in what might look like from the outside a bit of a David and Goliath relationship in some cases. And it really helps encourage these groups to sit down and look at, well, how can this creation of this feedback loop be something productive that's good for the industry. And I think, in terms of what's missing, we always have groups come to us and ask and say, well, how long does the application process take? How long does it take to get my project approved? And our answer is quite simple. It's as long as it takes you to get together with your partners and figure out how you want to do this. Like, we go as fast as you go. And so the big stumbling block a lot of the times has to do with IP. And so we're seeing a big challenge around IP literacy. So groups not necessarily being on an equal footing in terms of their understanding of what they should be doing or could be doing to best protect their IP and best leverage their IP. So we do have a function within PIC that provides some advice on that and are looking to help build out that capacity. The other piece, and this isn't going to be a surprise, is sometimes access to financing. So our program works, we aren't able to provide funding up front. We reimburse costs that have already been incurred by the groups. And so the groups have to have the funding in place in order to participate in our program. And that's sometimes a piece that's missing that they're not aware of.
So maybe just a quick question to our 3 panelists. So IP literacy, I think that's a great one. Where else can an early stage startup or even a scale up that's maybe struggling with that, where else can they find that help? What have you experienced? Where can you point them to? Any thoughts there?
I think that through the ones that we've experienced, and CAIN is in its early days, I'll just mention, is really been around our knowledge of the space and the Agtech space, if you will. So it's understanding kind of what's going on in the research area, what's going on by different service providers, and just having that insight, that connectivity to be able to say, like, we're not going to say, you need to connect with this person or that, but we can also make suggestions of what would help build out those teams. So I think really, Jason, I think it's having that well-rounded, but also those industry experts, being able to tap into those people that really understand the space.
Okay, thanks. And I from other personal experience, there's quite a few law firms that are realizing this is an opportunity for them to help early stage companies, and sometimes it's not pro bono, but it's close to, because they realize that that's a need for those companies, so that when they become more successful and they're further down, they can for more of a reasonable commercial fee provide that service. So I know I've seen that as well for early stage startups, is to access some of those firms, and some of which might be involved in the call here. So I've heard over the last number of years, Agrifood, Agtech. I think I heard today Agrifood Tech. What is that? There's this long supply chain that whoever we is, we think we know, from the upstream sort of, early stage inputs to the producer to the downstream. But I'm gonna throw it to Todd and ask, Agtech is a broad term and it can mean different things to different people. I'm interested to hear what you define from your position as Agtech.
Yeah, so I'm with you, Jason. I think Agtech is a big word, right? And I know when we started thinking of our use cases, and again, I found Steve's graphics pretty interesting. You've seen a whole bunch of boxes there, right? We started thinking about various use cases, and recognized that you had to think through your use case, and that instead of thinking something that's going to cross the entire market. So initially, we broke things down between farm and ranch, agribusiness, and agri-food. And then I think you also have to start thinking even on that level by commodity and by regions of how you're going to apply that. And that's the thing too. I think everyone's kind of looking for that great big huge massive play like a Facebook or the next thing that's just going to take off everything. That's not the case. You really have to know your space. And usually it's not the technology that we find is the issue. There's a lot of cool tech out there. It's a lot more about your go-to-market and really understanding how you get there. And that, I think, is where we always miss. So it is understanding your space. It is understanding that you do have to think about how you grow globally, but execute locally, and then also execute within your category. So dairy does not work like beef, nor does corn and beans always work like almonds. And if you don't know that, and you don't know how you're going to approach that, you're probably going to fail. So that knowledge and understanding where you're going to play in that value chain, do it. Now, TELUS is going to try to connect that in that chain from farm to fork, but even there, we are looking at specific use cases to basically drive that over time to connect that like we did in the TELUS Health side.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. And Frank, I'm just going to do a quick time check because I know we have another panel coming. So where are we at for time? Because I'm just want to be mindful of that for this section.
You've got till 3:40.
Okay.
15 minutes, yeah.
Okay, I want to unpack a little bit what you said, Todd, about, and I see a lot of, and maybe because of where I'm at on the smart farm, I see the companies working a lot at their product development. But you talked about working on developing their go-to-market strategy and understanding the product market fit. So what else can you share with the audience around, like, how much more or what type of effort should those companies be putting into that effort, the developing their go-to-market strategy and product market fit?
Well, simply, how are you going to actually, like, again, looking at every section a little bit different, but there are some generalities as well. I mean, a lot of farmers look like me. They're a 50-year-old guy. They're somewhat conservative. They got big fat thumbs. They aren't going to act like a 14 or 15-year-old. And so how are you going to interact and train and develop them? Almost every piece of research that I look at and see today is that the farm feels like it's being overwhelmed with technology, but it does not have the actual support. I find those that are winning really have recognized how they support the farm in their sector. Soileos, again, that was brought up, I think, has done a really good job of picking up that high value farm and then recognizing how they service and support it. It isn't just a technology thing. It's that support and service that goes around it as well. And recognizing your sector, recognizing where you're going to play, I think is what drives that success. So that to me is where the go-to-market is. Just don't think about product. Think about the other 4 or 5 Ps as well. and then recognizes there's going to be some nuances both locally and by commodity.
So that leads me to think about a lot of the audience here. So another part of this, so product development, go to market. What about go to finance strategy? So a lot of we have a great success story of one of our students, young student, who we think has $100 million opportunity in front of him, but he had to learn the whole funding and go to finance strategy on his own. So a question maybe to any of the three of our panelists, like where else do you see those startups go to get that help with developing a go to finance strategy? Have you seen any of that in your experience, and do any of your programs address that? That's a big question.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the particular space that we're operating in, and we talked a little bit about silos here, and
yeah,
the food companies, there's actually a well-developed market, and there's a lot of appetite for VC from that. But the ingredient processing space, and I know I'm moving a little bit away from the tech space. Tech, there's a well-developed market for as well. So if you learn how to speak that language and learn how to present things properly, there's an opportunity there. We have a little bit of a different flavor because there's this ingredient processing space that's neither equity nor venture. It kind of sits in this middle gray that there isn't an emerging investor yet. So we're kind of looking at how do we work it from both ends, and that's kind of where we've put our focus. And where there are well-established finance markets, or that's our assessment, we've really been referring companies to other platforms that can help them support that. So there's well-developed incubator programs, accelerator programs that focus on that. And we'll sometimes partner with them and collaborate with them, but sometimes we'll just make referrals as well. I don't know, Carrie, what your experience has been.
Well, and I think, I know, Carrie, you've got a deep history in the whole business development side, and that's the space I've worked in agri-food. And, really, I would say it is, as Todd said, it's focusing on all those P's and really understanding your lane, if you will, and the market opportunities. You kind of have to, in my mind, kind of take it down and then funnel it into what you can approach and take off. I think the steps will be incremental. So I think really being able to focus in and really understanding what those opportunities are, and then identify like-minded people for those financing opportunities.
I think one of the other things we talked about too was tracing it all the way back from the consumer plate. So, there's technologies that are really focused on the food, the product development, product formulation. And then there's other technologies that are more perhaps focused midstream. Well, how do you connect all of those all the way along to make, to see that the data is being collected and accumulated to meet the consumer demands that were referenced earlier this afternoon, but in such a way that also consumers are paying for it. And you're seeing those revenues roll back all the way through the value chain to the production level and at various steps all the way through. And that's a little bit of a, that's, I think, an evolution that's in process, but still needs some nudging and needs some work.
So Carrie, you talked about some of the solutions and customer focused, and I want to pick up on that thought. And it just a bit of a preamble here with regards to that. I was listening to the Agtech So What podcast the other day, and Pete Nelson from Ag Launch and Walt Duflucht from Western Growers were talking about the mistakes that many startup founders make when they're meeting with farmers for the first time. And you talked about customers, and farmers are for many of the ag tech, whatever we define that as, our customers. So they talked about partnering and being very deliberate to engage with farmers as business partners, not retail customers. So we talked about this supply chain back and forth, and I'm really curious to hear from any of our panelists. What do you think about that? And sort of to your point, Todd, you talked about think global but act local. So how often do our startups make the mistake of trying to go right to the sale to the customer without partnering with the farmer with their solution? What's some of your experience in that? Todd.
Well, so just maybe to build, so again, I think farmers are somewhat relatively conservative. Yeah. Also, a lot of things that hit the farm before ag tech, honestly, are very polished. Like it takes about 15 to 20 years to get an AI, an active ingredient, off the ground. It's similar when you start looking at seed varieties. So by the time the farmer usually gets technology, it is cooked, for various regulatory reasons. technology tends to work on agile development. That is not a normal way to do it, right? So there again is a bit of an education to show the farmer that what you're getting, quite honestly, is an early version, and that is going to change over time. That way of working is not well established, honestly, in agriculture. But that again is how technology is traditionally launched. And again, it shows you that we probably haven't done enough education with the farming community. And again, I'm talking about primary production, not necessarily on the food side, right? Where that needs to be probably worked on a little bit better. And so that's, you know, so to your point, sometimes I think we forget what culture we are in. Like, you know, you see that technology culture coming in from a Silicon Valley and trying to apply itself in a conservative agriculture environment that does not always work. And again, this is where I think we miss. And we're getting better, but it's taking some time. I don't know if I answered your question, Jason, but it is a bit of work.
Yeah, and
Go
I
ahead,
think too,
Carrie.
Jason, I think Jason, and you've talked to it already. And you know, part of Kane's platform is you know, we talk about Agtech, robotics, automation, data-driven decision-making, and smart farms. And you know, we're so proud to be part of, you know, really establishing a pan-Canada smart farm platform. And for me, it's that ability to, if you will, like Todd mentioned, like almost be a pilot, demonstrate, actually show the farmers on the ground, boots on the ground, how this would work, how it would apply, what's the ROI, what would this look like? Even if it is a little bit iterative in process yet, it will give that ability to show them, demonstrate it, validate it, and also to have that opportunity for education, no matter what their age is. You know, the new farmers and the ones that are here and looking forward to the future. So I think that in itself, I think is a really powerful platform to be able to springboard projects.
And I guess what I hear us saying and what I've seen and heard is that, like, the startup world and investment, we get pretty used to like doing things at light speed and want, you know, quick turns and quick wins, which is important. But to Todd's point, like, agriculture is a different culture. Kim McConnell reminded me the other day, it's one of the only industries that has culture in its name.
Yeah.
So that means that it takes sometimes a lot more time and effort to build relationships. And it sounds hokey, but sometimes you have to just approach folks like a neighbor, and that takes time to build a relationship. So I want to then expand on that and make a little bit of a statement and to get you to respond to it around the ecosystem and what you need to do around developing that. I've had this privilege to be involved in the ag innovation ecosystem since 2017, since it sort of first started. Some of the work I did at the outset, it was more of an organic growth, I would say, but it's becoming much more purposeful and direct. And maybe this is a bit of a message to our investor friends that are listening in. I'd actually put forward that it's actually somewhat more mature in many ways than it was even just a few years ago. And I say that because I see new types of investment coming in, new accelerators coming in. And so that tells me that there's something maturing there. And even through my work at Olds College Smart Farm, I see a lot of new and recent startups developing and validating their tech within the smart ag ecosystem. So it's maturing, and that's a good thing. But one thing I hear continually in my work as a co-founder in the Agrifood Impact, which is a social enterprise ecosystem booster within agriculture, is that there isn't enough of a connection in the ecosystem. There isn't ways for startups and investors and large organizations to connect really well. And having something even like a digital wayfinder tool would be an important way to grow our ecosystem beyond where it's at. So Carolee, like, do you agree with that? Do you see that the need to grow the ecosystem could be enhanced by having more of an ecosystem connector and more of a digital platform to help that connection happen?
Well, in theory, I think it could, but
Yeah.
I think you said it, there's culture involved. And the cultural element to it is people want a warm introduction. People are still human. And I think what we're finding, our experience in PIC, is that, you know, you can build a tool, and yes, people will use it to do their research, and they'll do it to, you know, get information on somebody. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that replaces word of mouth or a warm introduction. So I think you know, the value of the ecosystems is actually in people getting to know each other and being generous with their time and generous with their introductions and helping do their bit to grow connections for others. And that's where we're seeing as ecosystems mature, that happens more readily. And I think, you know, after 3.5, 4 years, PIC is getting to that point where we're seeing that happen more and more. So that would be my perspective.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
that.
think,
Carrie, go,
Yeah.
because I was going to throw it to you because you've been across the country and now you're in a different spot. So what does that mean to you?
well, I absolutely, and, you know, I've been in the across the agri-food space as well, and, you know, spent a lot of time in communications and marketing, frankly. And at the end of the day, Carly, I absolutely agree. It's about connecting. It's about, you know, I'm old school. So, you know, telling stories, explaining to people about your project through a story is very impactful. And I think it feeds itself to this kind of relationship. So when, you know, the N in Kane is network, and I really look at, you know, what is that? I think there's a gap there too as well, Jason, when you talk about that connectivity through, you know, the researchers are out there researching, and then there's issues and things going on the farm, and without understanding the business of farming, that's very difficult for them to kind of make that. But I think by explaining, and as Kara said, being generous with just openness to be able to explore and explain what you're doing, and then have through that connectivity. So I think that'll play a big role in the opportunities, and that's what we want to encourage, is to bring those groups together that don't normally talk to each other, and then be able to have the ability, a platform, if they will, the glue to be able to bring them together and say, hey, this is something here that we could work on, and hey, we've got some funds that you can apply to.
Well, I think we're up against time, and we could probably have a coffee or a soft drink or something interesting more to drink and spend the rest of the afternoon. But I think I'll just close it on the idea of how do we work together to move from that scarcity mindset where there's a feeling like there's maybe not enough startups, or there's not enough investment, or there's not enough opportunity. How do we move that to an abundance mindset? And I'll leave us with that challenge, and I'll turn it back to Frank and the team for the rest of the.
Thank you so much for this amazing discussion. It really unpacked a lot, and I'm glad that we have this recorded, because I know there's lots more people that aren't on the call today that can take a lot of this wisdom home and apply it. So thank you very much for sharing your grassroots knowledge.
Thank you so much.
So that gets us to our last panel. That is headed up again by Steve Hansen. He is going to lead the panel discussion about raising funding from startup to scale up, and what has to change in that job to be done from startup to scale up. CEOs and co-founders Eric and Otam, Michael Redag, and Samuel Fournier have graciously agreed to share their experiences and advice in this space. And I really look forward to learning from them and sharing that with the rest of our community.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate it. And good afternoon again, everyone. You know, the focus of this panel is fundraising, as Frank suggested, and it is, of course, a critical part of any startup's journey along the way. It's also one that's often fraught with confusion, misunderstanding, and just a number of speed bumps, I think, along the way, particularly as companies begin to scale from beyond, you know, friends and family money to something more significant over time. So I am very pleased to have 3 CEOs to chat about this topic here today with us, as Frank suggested. Again, Eric from ThisFish, Michael, Lucent Biosciences, and Sam from Chrysler Labs. You know, I think the goal really ultimately here, before I get into the questions, is first to understand where each of these companies is at in their process and their fundraising efforts, and then ultimately to drill down into some of the key learnings that I think they've perhaps accumulated in their journeys that might be of use to some of the other you know, younger companies on the line here today. So, gentlemen, thank you all for your time today. Appreciate it with me. I'll get right into it. Just in terms of setting the stage for our audience here. I'll first ask each of you just to tell us, you know, first what round you're currently raising, where you're at in that process, and ultimately what key milestones you're looking to achieve with the new funds. Eric, I'll start with you.
Great. Well, thanks. Well, I'm pitching today, so I don't want to steal my own thunder. Yeah, so we're sort of on a seed 2 because we did a very small seed round a couple of years ago, and for us, we're in a really scaling mode, moving into some new markets that may be a bit capital intensive to get into initially, but will pay off in the long term. And then also a little bit on our product roadmap as well. We need to do a little bit of investment in our product roadmap, particularly around artificial intelligence, which I know is pretty hot amongst investors right now. So yeah, we're looking to raise basically a seed 2.
That's helpful. Michael, do you want to go next?
Yes, we actually just last month closed a $4 million round from
Congratulations.
a lot of Vancouver investors, several who are on the call here as well, eFund and Woodif Capital and Women's Equity. What is it? Sorry, I'm just confused about the name here now, but Women's Equity Lab, right? Yeah. And we were able to bring in 2 VCs as well with the Agtech focus, who also want to participate in our next round, which is the Series A. So we just wrapped this up. The next step now, later this month, is actually to start the $10 million Series A round, where we're more specifically looking to focus on institutional investors. That round will be all about commercialization and manufacturing scale up. So that's where we're today.
It's very topical. Congratulations on that. That's great. And Sam, how about yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So a little background. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of CRISPR. So we have built a real-time cell analysis solution for precision ag. So basically, it's a lab in the field. So I have a code here. So it's basically just that we are bringing directly in the field. So we're based in Montreal. We're a staff of around 23 folks now. We've just initiated the process for Series A. So it's ongoing as of now. We're looking for 5 to 7 million Canadian. We have launched our product commercially this season with beta season done in 2020 with very good success. So 2021 were our first commercial season. We have clients in 7 provinces in Canada and around 20 states in the US. So with the raise, our goal is really to scale our solution across North America, but with existing clients, but also with new clients, and really to explore new opportunities specific to carbon quantification and region agriculture.
Okay, great. So we've got, again, 3 companies here that have all really started to make that journey towards the scale. Michael, certainly, again, congratulations on your latest round. I'm going to get into some of the key learnings now as you've sort of bridged from your past round to the current round. I think that's often confusing sometimes for people in terms of, do you do the same thing or what do you do differently? And so, what are the 1 or 2 key learnings from your last fundraising round that helped you prepare for, or perhaps even change your approach as you launched into this latest round? Did you prepare differently? Did you reach out to a different set of investors, broader set of investors? What were those key learnings that you might be able to share with us that you're applying to your current process? I'll start with you, Eric.
Yeah, so I think for us, our first round was more or less a Canadian round. We did participate in Techstars Sustainability, so they were in that round. And going through Techstars, now looking at this round and going to the US, the one thing that strikes me is the massive difference in valuations in Vancouver, Toronto, and the market. So I find that particularly difficult in early discussions with investors in Vancouver or the United States. It's people ask you, well, what are you putting your valuation at? And it's tough when you're trying to bridge both those markets and raise money in both those markets. So I've come to realize that it's really about just kind of landing that first lead investor who sets kind of the tone for the investment round. Vancouver investors don't like high valuations, but I think if they saw a reputable fund in the United States, accepting a larger valuation and starting off the round, they'll accept it. So I think that was probably one of the biggest learnings for me in the round that I'm currently doing.
No, that's great. That's good perspective. And having that anchor investor will ultimately dictate terms, which is important. And I would concur that valuations can be dramatically different depending on region, and particularly with your case where you've got a fairly niche advanced product. Michael, how about yourselves? You've just come off the back of a $4 million raise. How did you go about that round being any different than the prior?
Yeah, we started the round off actually with a strong focus on local angel investors here in the region, and local is Seattle as well, Seattle and Vancouver. And then when the round progressed, we got more traction also with some groups, angel groups, and eventually with a series of VCs. So a lot of personal networking. What I found really useful, if I would do it again, I probably would, start faster with meeting and presenting at several angel groups than what I've done before. The other thing that I found extremely useful, we went through 4 different Agtech focused incubators in a year time. So it's a lot of work, but a great place to connect with people that are focused on the area where you're hoping to grow. So there was a bit of an overlap in sort of what they offer in terms of programs, but I mean, we were there really for the networking and the people. So I think that was super useful. If I look at the Series A, what we've done now is we have created a long list of impact investors and VCs that we believe are strongly aligned with our vision. And so really narrowed it down, had initial conversations with a whole bunch of them to find out if our business aligns with their thesis, and keeping them updated now over time to sort of start building that relationship. Just sending a presentation, a deck, and a one-time pitch is really not enough. It all requires relationship building. And so we're taking like half a year to 9 months for that process now.
If I may, can I just, your discussion around some of the VCs and the institutional investors is notable here. What, from your perspective, how different has that been? Like, how much more in depth has the diligence been? What do you need to do differently to approach them? Do you wish you would have gone sooner or later? Just maybe describe that process quickly for us.
Well, I think what you really quickly can, I don't know if the word is right, but like waste your time on is, reaching out to the wrong investor type, right? Or the wrong, doing pitches and meeting with people and spending hours to find out it doesn't even align with their focus. And so getting that really clear is, saving you a lot of time. I guess that's where I would start. What I also notice is that sort of the focus on milestones really shifts. In the earlier rounds, it's all about showing progress towards a larger goal. When you get into, at least for us in this Series A round, it's all about commercialization and go to market. That is the one big thing, is showing traction, showing that we're able to put this in the hands of farmers, and showing that farmers like this product. I mean, that seems to be the whole focus of everybody we're talking with. It's like, what are the results of the trials? How many people have used it? And in the previous rounds, it was more like, are you able to show progress with your R&D and your product development and so forth? So it's a shift in milestones, and also how you communicate around those milestones.
That's great. And I think I would reiterate that point. In my experience thus far, mapping out your milestones and describing how you've been able to meet those milestones, against them or not, is an important process to have mapped out so investors can understand your progress. What about you, Sam? How has your process gone from your perspective?
Yeah, so we are doing things very differently than what we've done in a seed round. So I have to agree with Eric and Mike on that point. So first learning for us is that it's not every investors are made equal. So meaning that you need to do your homework before talking to investors. So some currently have money, some don't. Some are only scouting for technologies. Some are more serious in their process. And so we see some more professional investors as opposed to some people that are kind of starting in the business. Second learning for us is that time is valuable. So moment we spend on looking for money is not moment that we have to scale our business. So the process should be based on science and not on guesswork, right? So that was kind of one of the main learning we had. So we are planning to raise in advance, we execute the plan, and hopefully we harvest a lot of farm sheets. So this is the only way to drive valuation as a Canadian company. And the last learning is investment is a game of relationship, right? So we are fortunate enough to be introduced to different investors during our seed round, but we needed to maintain these relationships along the way. So the way we've decided to do is to build a monthly newsletter where we were sending our KPIs, some market insights as well. So just to keep those people involved and engaged. So of course, our pitch has evolved a lot during that process and the preparation too. So to be quite frank, I just think we know a bit more what we're doing now than what we've done during the first raise. So, and you know, you've mentioned, do we target the exact same VCs? For us, not exactly. We saw a big difference between VC investing in innovation at large, as opposed as VC investing in ag technology. So we need to have people that understand those trends, understand the time to market of these new technologies, and we really need to kind of better understand their thesis of investment to be aligned with their vision. So this is one of the big thing we're currently doing.
No, that's very helpful, and I think your time comment is well taken. I think investors, or sorry, I think startup founders often underestimate how long it can take to go through the fundraising process.
Yeah.
So start early, be prepared, be meticulous in your documentation, and plan for more than you think you're going to need, because it's going to take you longer, and you don't want to run out of money, of course. Just maybe we've got a few more minutes, but I wanted to touch on just the idea of non-dilutive capital for a moment for you guys. You know, what has been your approach there? How aggressively have you gone after that non-dilutive capital? We've had a couple of presenters on here earlier today that, you know, help provide that capital, but you maybe just describe to us quickly what you've done thus far, and if there's any key programs that you would recommend as must-dos or must programs to pursue for earlier stage startups. Eric?
Yeah, so in the last year, we've been pretty lucky. We landed some fairly large non-dilutive grants that were pretty competitive. So I think only about maybe 10% of the applicants actually got awarded. So we got, you know, $500,000 Canada Ocean Super Cluster Award. We won one of the BC Aquaculture Innovation Awards. We also were one of the companies that got the BC Agritech Award. So we've been pretty lucky on these larger awards. But these are kind of, I would say, more one-offs. And then, you know, we typically go for can export because we're mostly selling into foreign markets. So that's been a big help. Digital Skills for Youth, which is a federal program, but delivered through a lot of nonprofits. That's actually great. It provides up to $25,000 for 6 months internships. And we've onboarded a lot of new junior employees with that. And then we actually haven't gotten a lot of IRAP over the years, just because we've been successful with these other grant fundings. But, you know, we're in constant contact with our IRAP rep, and we're currently in an IRAP program right now. So
that's great. And are you managing that all internally, Eric? Or are you getting help from external parties? It is a complicated web sometimes.
Yeah, it is. You know, I spent 10 years in the nonprofit sector, so I know how to write a funding application.
Okay,
So that's been part of my success. You know.
Okay, good perspective. And how about you, Michael? Would non-dilutive capital been an important part of your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the challenges from an investment point of view that we have in Agtech is that a lot of the work is CapEx intensive, right? Whether you're in robotics or, like in our case, like in fertilizer, it's about you know machines and processes and optimization, and the Canadian Agtech programs, because there's many, have been extremely helpful for us getting through that process to scale up, basically from like lab bench scale to industrial scale. So we received grants from the BC Agritech, BC Innovate, NRC, and obviously the biggest one for us was Protein Industries Canada, which really allowed us to accelerate that scale up. So it has been, I don't even know if we would have been able to get this far without those grants. I mean, that's how important they were in our whole process and growth. We decided earlier this year to hire a part-time, 3 days a week grant writer to help us, get the documentation properly in order and so forth. And that seems to have paid off really well. We've been applying to not only these types of grants, but also prizes and other, challenges that are, all around the globe. And, we just participated in a program in Singapore, for instance, giving us some perspective in the Asian markets. But yeah, I mean, there is so many grant opportunities, and it's super critical for Agtech companies to get through that early stage. And yeah, I would advise everybody to jump in there and don't be afraid for the paperwork, because it's really going to pay off.
Well worth it, sounds like. And how about you, Sam? On you're out east, but have you gone after many of the same programs, or what's been your approach?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing as the other founders, right? We are a major fan of non-dilutive money, and the real question should be, why wouldn't we going after these money, right? It's a real opportunity for startup to extend the runway and to solve more problem with less solution. So investors are also very happy because it affects the leverage that serve well in terms of valuation. So in the last 2 years, we were able to gather, I would say, a little around 3 million non-dilutive. So for us, that was a real game changer. So of course, we don't have exactly the same access because we're based in Montreal, so we don't have access to the same provincial grants. But we have a lot of different programs here in Quebec that are pretty generous. But in terms of the federal standpoint, one that was probably one of the best we've been through was SDTC. So if you're a clean tech company, you're able to apply to SDTC. So there's a lot of fun there. Otherwise, we've been participating to IRAP, which was also mentioned. So federal standpoint, those are kind of the major two. We've been in discussion with PEAK as well. Timeframe was not specifically good for us now, but yeah, I think this is a big source of money as well.
That's great. And I would just note, even from an external standpoint or lens, a lot of these grants come with diligence processes that also can be perceived valuable to new investors that come along late thereafter. So it does provide an element of credibility later as well, having had some of these groups back you. So, okay, look, I'm on the hour here and on the time, so I'm gonna just cut it off there and say thank you to all three of you. I think the journeys have been great, and you've demonstrated some great success. And I think there's a lot of learnings that can be had for younger organizations that are just getting started and following in your footsteps. So again, thank you all, and I'll turn it back to you, Frank.
Thanks so much, Steve and Eric, Michael, and Sam. Amazing sharing there. Wendy, can you please put up the last poll, and then let's hand things over to Thelzel for the second part of our meeting.
Right, thank you, everybody. That was fantastic. That was I learned a lot, and this is a very exciting area. Getting some well-deserved attention for investment.
Okay.
It's great to have you all here. As I said, VANTEC, the angel networks, one of the oldest angel networks in Canada. We've been investing in entrepreneurs since 1999. And I believe our founder is in the audience. Mike Volker, are you still in the audience? Maybe you can say a few words.
Yes, hi Thelzel. I'm sorry, my video's giving me a little trouble, so
I guess not. All right, well then let's start the meeting.
You couldn't hear me?
Also, Mike is here.
There we go. We are.
We could hear him.
Yeah.
One of the largest angel group in BC.
Maybe Thelzel can't hear us.
Yeah, I was told there we go. Here I am talking and there's no sound. All right. So yes, welcome back everyone. Always the technical problems. It's amazing. We're all about tech, and yet we have technical problems ourselves. All right. So we've been operating as the largest angel group since 1999. We have more than 150 members. More than almost 3,000 companies have presented since 1999. We should update that numbers, and a good number of them have received investments from individual angels and from the many funds. We have some stats that we'd love to share with you. Well, we just got the stats from Q1 for 2021. 55 companies have received $3.7 million. And compare that to all of 2020, 87 companies have received 14.6 million. So we're really, I think we're going to exceed our numbers from last year. We're well supported by our organizations, NRC, IRAP, NACO, and ACA. NACO stands for the National Angel Capital Organization, which is the professional organization for Canadian and angel groups, and the American-based Angel Capital Association. They require data. So if you see us sending you requests for data, please fill that in because it's really important. It helps support our angel investment community and just our entrepreneurial ecosystem in general. If you haven't received anything and want to be part of this data, just shoot us an email. We have investor surveys in email and on Slack. We have membership for accredited investors. We have full membership and online membership. If you are out of town, can't make it to all the VANTEC meetings, this might be a good one for you. You get recorded meetings after the meetings are done, of course, and company profiles and a pay per event. But if you become a full member, you get all of that. Plus you can bring in guests. You can participate in our screening sessions to help select our companies that present. And we give you access to recorded meetings and company profiles and docs and link. And even better, if you are a member of one of our partner angel groups or funds, there's a membership for the same benefits for only $400 a year. I'd like to give a shout out to our annual sponsors. Some of them have been with us from the very, very beginning. So thank you so much to Fasken, SFU Venture Labs, who is our major venue sponsor, Raymond James, Tandem Innovation Group, Western Pacific Trust Company, OKR Financial, TD Bank, InWest Ventures, and KTAX. Of course, we're very much involved in our community, so we thank our community partners, eFund, Angel Investment Fund, Woodif, Angel Capital Innovation Fund. So Front Funder, Tandem, Volition, Spring, Keiretsu Forum, Rocket Builders, and of course our professional organizations of ACA based in the United States and the Canadian-based National Angel Capital Organization. Of course, we've got some money from the federal government who believe in our ecosystem. Thank you to all of them. We have some upcoming events. These are all listed on our website, and I believe our team may have put the link to our website agenda today in the chat function, so take a look at that. So we have, all of this is listed, and this is where we're going to call up our community partners because they have some community service announcements. So I'd like to call up Jackson Wu for the SUV Pitch Perfect. Jackson.
Thank you very much, Thelso. Can everybody hear me? I'll assume that's a yes. So I understand everybody wants to see the new moves and new exciting, startup companies, but we also have some very interesting companies that are coming from across the ocean via Zoom to show what they're, what they've been working on, and it might be the next, foreign, Google or something. So I would invite everyone to attend the preview event. If you're a VANTEC member, except online members, you will receive an invitation after this event ends which has a link so that you can join the event. The event is tomorrow at 9 a.m. via Zoom. The link will be sent after this event is done, and I look forward to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson. And I'm just fresh from maternity leave. If you would like a spring activator, please.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm Caroline at Spring Activator, and for those of you not already familiar, our main focus is around supporting investors and ventures that want to make a positive impact. And we've got several impact investment programs coming up that I wanted to share quickly with you. So first, check out Vancouver Economic Forum's Angels for Climate Solutions, which is a unique style program that empowers angel investors to fund climate-focused solutions and also supports those ventures to pitch for the chance to win $100,000. And it's unique because we're supporting the investors on a journey to build their impact investment thesis and in real time to go through that due diligence process hand in hand with the ventures, whittling down them from 20 to one winning venture. So I'll post a link to that in the chat. Deadlines are coming up at the end of the month. And then we have some exciting upcoming programs on a national level and with a healthcare theme to be announced soon. So thank you all. Wonderful session today. And I look forward to seeing your applications come in.
Thank you very much, Caroline. That from Spring Activator. I'd like to call up Foresight.
Hi, Belzo. Thank you. We're really thankful for the opportunity to support this forum and for the chance to share a little bit about Foresight and AgriNext. I just had a couple of slides, so I'll throw those up if possible.
Okay.
Just don't currently have permission to do so.
You should be able to do that now.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah, my name is Andrea Bravo. I'm the manager of AgriNext, which is Foresight's ag sector-specific acceleration and ecosystem hub. Foresight is Canada's largest clean tech accelerator. We bring together all of the different stakeholder groups in the innovation ecosystem to support companies leading the global transition to a green economy through 5 buckets of activity, which are acceleration, adoption, capital, exports, and ecosystems. And with AgriNext, we're bringing together the agri-food innovation ecosystem, taking a collaborative approach to fostering Canadian ag tech innovation that can address the sustainability challenges that are being faced by our agri-food sector through venture training programs, mentorship, workshop and events, and innovation challenges, ultimately in support of a dynamic and harmonious national agri-food innovation ecosystem in the spirit of course, why we're together today. So thank you very much for having us as part of this event. And if you'd like to learn more about AgriNext coming up and join our programming, please feel free to contact me at the email up here, abravo@foresightcac.com.
Great, thank you. Innovation Canada, let's hear from you.
Hi there. Oh, right, there we go. Hi, thanks, Azel. So I'm Sandra Spencer with Innovation Canada. I'm a senior innovation advisor, and I just wanted to share a little bit about our service. So we work within the federal government, and we are a service arm, so we don't have any funding specifically, but we're here to help navigate companies through the government landscape and help find programs. So there's a team of 5 of us that serves BC and Yukon, but there's advisors all across the country. And so if any of the companies are interested or would like to meet with one of us, it is a free service, and we'll meet with you to help make recommendations for programming and help you get access to that funding or resources. We also make recommendations to angel groups such as VANTEC and accelerators. So we're really a wayfinder and a navigator for companies. So I'll leave it there and I'll share some information in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Innovation Canada. It's a nice segue because it's from the Trade Commissioner's Office. So we're just going to cross the border for a little bit and ask E8 to speak to us from Seattle.
Great, thanks also. I'm excited to share with you that we're introducing E8 Ventures. And as, get this to advance, as I'm sure nobody has missed, climate tech, clean tech as we used to call it, is belatedly booming. But as some of your investors or entrepreneurs can probably attest, there's still a funding gap at the early stages. This is an opportunity that we plan to capitalize on with a $50 million fund, currently with $5 million committed from investors in our network. And building on E8, we of course have large existing deal flow. We haven't been around quite as long as VanTech, but almost since 2006, with proven processes in place and really deep sector experience, targeting 20 companies with capital efficient models and clear paths to exit in this very exciting sector. Being spun out of E8, we have of course significant experience, as I said, 15 years in the sector and processes in place and can help build successful companies. And we actually did launch a small fund in 2015. It's been quite successful, 1.85 times TVPI today, and just in the process of closing our first exit. So about to distribute some cash to our investors. This is the funding team. I'm bringing that up because one of my fellow managing directors is John Noel, who has been running Clean Energy Venture Group in Boston and New York. So we've got good both West Coast and East Coast experience, and of course, look all over US and Canada, where we expect invested quite a bit. Anybody is interested, please join us. December 7th, we're having a session at 10 a.m. And we are obviously looking for gathering interest for a first close, but also, of course, looking for a lot of other investors as we now increasingly target funds of funds and more institutional investors. Thanks for the interest. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, E8 Ventures. Lars, it's always been a pleasure to share our deals with you and your colleagues down south. Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. So now let's see if I can overcome the technical problems before. Mike, if you're still there, I won't interrupt you this time. Everybody, Mike Volker.
Yeah. I'm here. Thanks, also. Yes. And what is it that you're calling me to the floor for, other than to tell everybody you're doing such a wonderful job running these meetings?
Oh, except for the tech problems. But it's really changed since 1999 when you first started.
Yeah, we sure miss those in-person meetings, don't we?
Yes, we do. But it's great, Mike. You are an institution in our ecosystem, and just the difference of how it's grown from when you first started, and how our ecosystem has grown so much to encompass Western Canada, the other parts of Canada, and really even into the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, you bet. And again, thanks for all your effort on this. I'm surprised you're not, well, you are very busy with the E-Fund, and I'm spending most of my time, as many people know, with What If, because we've had some good exits and we're looking for some good new investments. And so I'm looking really forward to the presentations that follow today.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Very good segue and introduction to the next topic. Let's get into it. All right, there we go. All right, so we're going to be having 17 different presentations today. 5 updates, 6 previews, and 6 full presentations. First thing we're going to listen to are the updates and previews. They're 90 seconds each. We will be putting out a poll for you to choose your favorite 90-second pitch, because the top scoring companies will be invited back to try out for one of the full presentation slots. After all the presentations are done, including the full presentations, there'll be breakout rooms where you can speak with the presenting companies and ask your probing questions. And at the end of it, we're always looking to improve. Like I said, we've really changed a lot since 1999. We're always looking to improve. So please fill out the survey, because we do pay attention to all of your comments. So with the network breakout rooms, this is how it's going to work. After all the presentations, there will be a couple of cycles of presentations. I'm sorry, this is a little bit dated, but because we have 6 full presentations, we will have 3 cycles of presentations at 7 minutes apiece, and then we will have random pairing after that. House rules: please mute yourself when you're not presenting. Please keep your phone quiet. Network, network, network. This is all about building community, getting to know each other. No soliciting unless you're presenting entrepreneur. And please identify yourself, whether you're a company investor or an ecosystem player in the community. Tips for entrepreneurs: network, network, network. Network with the investors, introduce yourself, ask for interest. This is really important. I've seen a lot of companies over the years who have raised their money on the strength of their 90-second pitch, because they invited their interested investors to come back for a full, deeper discussion. So really take advantage of the time. Send email updates to interested investors. Keep your GUST profile up to date. Anything that you can do to maintain your top of mind presence. We do share your recorded pitch in the GUST profile with our members, and we also share our the full presenters with the Pacific Northwest Angel groups, and you heard from one of them today, the E8 Ventures. Lots of ways to connect: Slack, DocSend, Gust, and of course on the company feedback forms. And of course, take a look in chat. You'll see that you can always contact us anytime at info@vantec.ca. So if you members, if you want to connect on Slack and you're not on Slack, send us an email to info@vantec.ca and we'll set you up. All right, with that, let's start with the very first 90-second pitch. Nutritious.
I will share my screen.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lily Mesak, the CEO and co-founder of Nutritious. We are selling high-performance plant nutrient to greenhouse grower. We are ready to scale our business and currently looking for an experienced salesperson to join our team. Improper plant nutrition can cause chlorotic leaf, small plant, a lack of flower, and uneven growth. This can increase variable production costs up to 24% from extra labor, input loss, extra electricity, and water. By using N-biotin, grower can increase plant quality and uniformity to nearly 100% and increase their profit margin. Our organic nutrient can fully replace synthetic fertilizer. The Canadian market for greenhouse flower is 1.7 billion. Organic fertilizer market in North America will increase to 2 billion in 2025 and is expected to grow by 13.5% per year. We have loyal customers and we are planning to scale our production tenfold to meet growing demand from Canadian flower growers and potential distribution partners. We are looking to raise funding to grow our production capacity and increase in sales and marketing. Please contact us and thank you.
Thank you. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nutritious. Next up, we have Nada. So Brienne, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, so let's share your screen. Okay, anytime you're ready.
So my name is Brienne. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Nada. And as many of us know, our conventional food system is the largest global contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Traditional groceries are carbon intensive, wasteful, and there's very little transparency in our food supply chains. So at Nada, we've set out to connect people to a more just food system. To do this, Nada is an omni-channel package-free grocery store and delivery service that is completely underpinned by custom proprietary technology and an e-commerce platform. Similar to what Spud has done for grocery delivery, we've been able to do for a circular economy food supply chain. What is unique about Nada is that we have a completely circular economy supply chain. Thanks to our technology, our operations are completely carbon negative. We're also tech enabled and have a huge amount of transparency within our customers and our supply chain. As you can imagine, groceries have a very large total addressable market. We are operating in East Vancouver and we are raising to expand our services, starting with the Lower Mainland before jumping to different locations in Canada and the Pacific Northwest. We have a very diverse omni-channel revenue stream. We hit $1.5 million in sales within our first year and expect our 2022 sales to come in at about $3 million. Our team is extremely diverse and we're very proud to be backed by some incredible leaders, including those from Shopify, Whole Foods, Spud, and Arc'teryx. And this is a growth seed round for us to expand our services and license our software. And we currently have $1 million committed and we would love your support to help close our round by the end of Q4. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Scout Canning.
Can you hear me or can you see me? Because I can't see myself.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Here, I'll just go ahead and share my screen. I'm just going to fire through some quick updates. Good to see everybody. With the help of two angels from VANTEC early on, 17 months ago, we've gone on to grow pretty rapidly since. So we've been in market now for 17 months and have achieved about 2.2 million in sales in that time. We've opened 800 retail doors with about a 65% split in the US. We have 9 SKUs currently in market, and we have another 6 that we're launching next year. It's been great to see how consumers are using our products across breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The real opportunity that we've really carved out is underutilized species and then some super premium species, and that's been our kind of niche in the marketplace. So on top of US growth, we're also opening up 2 international markets that include Singapore and South Korea to do a little bit of tests on some international expansion. We've got some great funds in the business. We now have 5 institutional funds and have raised 2.5 million to date over 2 seed rounds. So that includes Sage, Almanac, the Angels. We have investment from Export Development Canada, as well as Soileos Ventures. So we're really making the transition now from building our brand with specialty and independent retailers into mass grocery. Still in the natural products industry. So we expect to grow to an additional 1,000 to up to 2,000 doors next year. So we've done some pretty crazy stuff this year. We tried to buy a bigger company. We're looking at acquiring some emerging seafood brands, and we've got a lot on deck for next year. Our Series A is planned for late Q2, early Q3 of next year. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. Next up is Verde Ag. Arthur, are you there?
I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, and we'll
All
just
right.
share your screen.
Perfect. Sounds good. And let me know whenever it's good to start.
Anytime.
Perfect. So nice to see everyone here again. I'm Arthur from Verity, and we're modernizing irrigation systems to help farmers customize water and nutrient delivery for every plant. Now, agriculture is a $10 trillion industry that we all depend on, but without one single crucial resource, water, it would all come to a grinding halt, and water is running out. In the US alone, almost 200 million acres of farmland are under drought as we speak, and even up here in Canada, farmers are starting to feel their same effects. That's why at Verity, we're helping farmers become resilient to drought by building swarms of intelligent irrigation devices to control exactly where water goes in the field. For the first time, farmers have the precision to save 2 times more water than traditional solutions. And that does more than just save water. In our first success story, we helped Canada's largest wine company sell wine for 3 times higher price. We can increase yield by up to 20% and also reduce emissions. We sold out for this year with 500 devices across 7 customers. We have 25K in ARR and a wait list of over 200 acres. Our customers include the world's largest wine company and top Canadian brands like Arterra and Mission Hill. We're selling our solution as an annual subscription, targeted first to the wine industry before expanding down market into fruits and vegetables. We're advised by former agribusiness directors from DuPont and Trimble, and we're currently searching for senior business operators who have experience in agriculture. So if you know someone who might be interested, we'd love to be introduced to them. Thank you, and we are Verity.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was Verity Ag. Next up is Barrelwise Technologies.
Afternoon, everyone. Share my screen here. So most of the really great wine in the world is aged in oak barrels. But throughout the aging process, each of these barrels affects the wine differently. And significant barrel by barrel variability exists in the wine, both chemically and ultimately sensory or taste. So for wineries that have hundreds or thousands of barrels, they must undertake a huge labor expense and effort in order to properly care for these barrels, but they still really lack the resources to give each barrel the individual attention that's truly needed to maximize wine quality. So we at Barrelwise have developed a system that allows winemakers to precisely analyze and control the aging wine in a way that's so efficient that data can be collected on every single barrel, which is opposed to the 5 to 10% that we typically see with current methods. And this allows the wineries to avoid costly wine tier downgrades and ultimately helps them maximize the value of their vintage. In the coming months, we'll be unveiling our new rapid free sulfur sensor and software at a series of trade shows in California. We're filing 2 new patents, and we'll be beginning new commercial trials with some of the largest and best known wine producers in the world, Jackson Family Wines and Treasury Wine Estates. At this time, our ask of the VANTEC community is, firstly, if you know anyone involved in the California wine industry, particularly in Napa and Sonoma, and industry-leading producers like Silver Oak or Opus One, it'd be great to chat about a possible introduction. And secondly, if you have any interest in hearing an investment proposal, I'd love to stay in touch over the next few months for when we open a financing up in the spring of 2022. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was Barrelwise Technologies. Next up is Novus Earth.
Okay, let's try to get my screen share up here.
Perfect.
Okay. Do you know where your food is sourced? What about in the wintertime? Canada imports 50% of its fresh vegetables and 80% of its fresh fruit. And why don't we grow more in Canada or even Northern Canada, or take it a step further, Siberia or Africa, or really any region that has an extreme climate? The key reason is because energy prices are too high and too volatile. So how do we solve food insecurity across the globe and do it in an environmentally sustainable way? We are Novus Earth, and we supply fresh produce and protein with aquaponics using renewable energy. This means consistent cost, predictable profit, and affordable food production for urban and remote communities alike, with a net negative GHG footprint. Traditional growing is handcuffed by highly variable energy costs, and Novus Earth will succeed because we control that variable in both electricity and heat by using a proprietary deep well geothermal design that can be installed nearly anywhere. We are guided by an expert advisory team of PhDs in resource economics, geothermal sciences, and horticulture. Our executive team is made up of geologists, construction, and energy professionals who get things built. So here's our ask. $3.5 million for a 7% stake in the company at a $50 million valuation. This investment will get us to the next step of securing project financing and breaking ground. We know that growing produce and getting it to market will be a challenge, and having someone with expertise in agribusiness would be valuable. So help Novus Earth go supernovus.
Supernovas indeed. Thank you so much. That was Novus Earth, everyone. Next up is Synergia Biotech. Novus, you need to unshare so that Synergia can share their screen. Thank you.
Okay. Could we just confirm if you see the
yes.
present? Okay.
Yeah, we're looking good.
Okay, great. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Angela Kouris. I am the CEO and co-founder of Synergia Biotech, and we are bringing the world the first green natural blue pigment. So food and beverage companies worldwide are searching for natural colors. The blue M&Ms and Gatorades of the world need a new natural source of blue, and it is the rarest color of them all. The only practical natural alternative to widely used chemical blue is a pigment called phycocyanin. Synergia Biotech has created an energy and cost-saving innovations at each step of the phycocyanin production process. We use an open pond system coupled to microbes where the chemistry of the water and the growth and the harvesting of the microbes actually capture the carbon directly from the atmosphere. Other systems need to bubble it in and purchase it first. By using natural populations of microbes originally from lakes in northern British Columbia and replicating exactly what they've evolved to do over millennia in nature, we've created a crash-free system, and that it functions continuously. The phycocyanin market is rapidly growing, and if a fraction of the chemical blue market is converted to phycocyanin, it would grow exponentially. Over $5 million in government grants and 7 years of advanced scientific research have allowed us to hit some key milestones, including demonstrating the process in an outdoor environment and producing enough samples for early customer trials that were quite successful to date. Our award-winning team blends both scientific expertise and commercial and business prowess specific to this space. We're currently raising $500,000 to expand our production capacity on Vancouver Island. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Synergia Biotech. Next up is Mycorrhize. Mycorrhize, if you're there, please share your screen. Excellent. Okay, whenever you're ready.
1 second here. Oh, just have to. Okay, nutraceuticals are natural foods that have health benefits associated with them, and the nutraceutical industry is booming, with mushrooms currently leading the charge with a calculated annual growth rate of 8.04%, and it's set to hit $34.3 billion by 2028. The problem is North American manufacturers need to import 90% of their product from China and still can't keep up to the market demand. With supply chain concerns and quality assurance issues, the industry is ripe for disruption. I'm Rob Swiderski, and we are Mycorrhiza. We'll be producing a full spectrum nutraceutical mushrooms that will be grown, dried, powdered, and shipped to manufacturers and ingredient sourcing platforms. First mover advantage in a growing industry to supply a $2.7 trillion addressable market, from skincare and cosmetics to pet products and to the health and wellness industry. We will make between $30 kilogram of profit for our bulk ingredient powder, up to $750 per kilogram profit on our nutraceutical consumer packaged goods line. Our first facility will be located in Calgary, Alberta. We are looking to have construction of the facility done by end of April 2022 and our first crop packaged by mid-June 2022. We are the combination of three formidable startups covering production, manufacturing, and innovation into one extraordinary vertically integrated company. Our team comes from a vast pool of experience in multiple industries. Our CEO, Jeff DeLapp, served as president for McCain's North America. Dr. Holliday, with 42 years experience growing mushrooms, comes from our largest competitor, Aloha Medicinals, and Dustin Williams, who has brought over 500 health and wellness products to market. Currently, the founders have bootstrapped the project to the tune of $400K, and we're looking to raise $5 million in a straight equity raise. Proceeds will go to construction of the facility, paying for our equipment, staffing, and into the manufacturing of our consumer packaged goods line, as well as patents and brand development. Our investors will have three potential exits at our Series B raise by a strategic acquisition, or if and when we go public. Nourish the body and feed the soul. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mycorrhiza. Next up is Gentle Processing.
Hello, my name is Michael Dubuque, CEO and co-founder of Gentle Processing. Our company manufactures three unique and very efficient patentable food processing technologies which address major concerns in food production. Plant-based proteins continue to receive ongoing focus by food producing leaders due to their abundant availability, economic efficiencies, and growing consumer demand. Governments around the world are providing multi-billion-dollar programs to accelerate this movement. The biggest problem they face is not supply, but the ability to meet the flavor profiles and consumer safety protocols without negatively altering the plant-based proteins. Our Gentle Processing equipment provides exactly what the industry needs to address these problems. Gentle Processing has made its way into the National Research Council of Canada. Presently, we are contracted with three large commercial companies. Our team has strong backgrounds in business, engineering, financial management, agricultural production, and equipment manufacturing. Our raise is $2 million. Proceeds will be utilized over the next 2 years to acquire additional executive talent, to support business operations, to implement marketing and customer acquisition programs, and secure manufacturing materials. We're looking for investors that want to join us on our journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Gentle Processing. Next up, we have VANTEC.
Fantastic. Hi, my name is Maximo Tanasov, and I'm one of the co-founders of VANTEC, a global business-to-business wine platform. Right now, we need to scale. We set out to accomplish a near perfect alignment of stakeholder interests and drive climate-forward actions. Wine producers spend 50% or more of their time on the 5 challenges listed here. Much of that time could be saved through data, workflow, and automation. Our solution hosts a catalog of producers, wines, and importer profiles in one spot with global reach. We enable wine producers and wine marketing boards to find, connect, and interact with these. We drive about 30 to 50 times ROI and unlock new revenue channels and markets. The B2B wine tech marketplace is very fragmented, with no one currently emerging as a leader, and we need to scale now. Governments have a vested interest in what we're doing as it drives economic growth, export and rural development, and leads to net positive benefits for the environment. We're in talks with several of the European governments to be their mandated wine marketing platform. Currently, we're interested in advisors with deep experience in government relations. So thank you for your time and attention. If you're interested in seeing our investment proposal, get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Vinter. Next, we have One Cup AI. Vinter, you need to unshare so that One Cup can share. There we go. Anytime, One Cup.
Welcome to One Cup, where you manage your herd over a cup of coffee with Betsy, your AI ranch hand. Ranching today is tricky business, long hours, shortage of skilled labor, and tight margins. For example, during the calving season, a rancher is up several times a night after night for months on end, in the bitter cold to check their animals. The industry lacks automation, and due to rural bandwidth, is slow to adapt to technology, but that is all about to change.
One Cup uses AI and computer vision to identify livestock from almost any angle, effectively face ID for animals. With the ID, we then track, using only vision, for health, growth, activity, nutrition, and phenotypes. Today, Betsy is deployed to 20 beta sites with over 200 cameras to track cattle, horses, sheep, bison, and elk, with another 100 early adopters ready to go. Soon, Starlink will increase rural bandwidth by tenfold, and we think Betsy will prove to be the killer application.
Betsy is easy to install and use. She begins IDing animals automatically and proactively alerts the producer during calving season so they can get more rest. We are Mocha and Jeffrey Schmigelski, and we are looking for partners and funding to improve the lives of ranchers in Canada and beyond.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Everybody, that was the end of the 90-second pitches. Take a look in your chat, because I see that one of our VANTEC team members has put out a link to a poll. So take a bit of time, choose your favorite 90-second pitch. The top scorers will be invited to be pre-screened for one of the full presentations. And speaking of full presentations, they're coming up next. We have 6 of them today. How it works is that they too were in the 90-second pool. They were chosen from that pool and passed screening. And so they are now presenting a full presentation, which is 5 minutes long. They are introduced by their angel sponsor, who will let us know why we should be paying attention to the company. And after each full presentation, there will be another poll 6 times, one for each of the full presentations, where you would give them some feedback. And they will be having their own dedicated networking breakout rooms so that you'll be able to ask them some deep dive questions. So first up is Susgrainable. And Tom Urban is the angel sponsor for Susgrainable. So Tom, if you're there, if you could please step up and tell us why we should pay attention to Susgrainable.
Good afternoon, Tom Urban here. So, a lot of the things that we've heard earlier in the program, one of the themes that was pretty clear was the theme of upcycling, using grains and everything from manure to everything else to really reduce the amount of waste in the ag supply chain. Susgrainable is doing this in a very, very interesting way and producing products which are looking to be in great demand as we move into the baking season. So what they're doing is they're using upcycling of barley from breweries and using that to create a novel flour, which they are then processing into baking goods, cookies, waffles, and flour. I've had them. I like them. My kids have them. They like them. And so it's a really interesting category of food going forward. And I'll let Mark take that from here.
Thanks so much, Tom.
So Canada wastes over 58% of food within our food system. Since COVID-19, consumer awareness of the problem has only risen. But the question remains, how do we tackle such a big problem? We believe it begins with a unique story and a great path to market. At Susgrainable, it starts with beer and baking. One of the huge problems that microbreweries have is actually with their byproduct. Most people wouldn't know it, but they produce over 450,000 tons per day of waste. At the same time, this byproduct is rich in fiber, protein, and minerals, everything we need in the North American diet to prevent the rise of metabolic diseases such as diabetes. So the solution at Susgrainable is to quickly dehydrate, mill this into a shelf-stable flour, and then put it into baking mixes that can be easy make for consumers. We're replacing garbage trucks with delivery trucks, basically optimizing the supply chain and building a healthier environment at the same time. Turns out there's also a big market for this. Upcycled food waste is at 47 billion and functional flour is 80 billion and growing. And we play at the intersection of these two markets. Now we like a bottom-up approach as well. So with one micro facility, approximately 3,000 square feet, it can generate up to $14 million in revenue. We aim to do this by 2023. And from there, it's just duplication. Another great part is that investment in this space is only continuing to rise. Now our revenue model to date, we have our current model with measured against our future model. The important thing to realize is our current model was only used to validate the market. It has low capacity issues, high cost to produce, even though there's $0 inputs, and low transparency into the process, which our consumers don't like. Now with our own facility, we can take control of the most pivotal step in the process. We're gonna have a much higher capacity in production, drastically be able to lower our costs, to then be able to partner up with the distributors and retailers who we've already been having great conversations with. It also adds transparency for the end consumer and enables further R&D on different byproducts as we move forward. Now you'll see we've been flatlined with revenue, and that's partially in part because of COVID. Our initial product, we were initially going after the food service market, but what it meant was a lot of years of learning. And this learning will allow us to grow. We've now built the relationships in the consumer packaged goods space with retailers and distributors. And with that launch of the first facility, we'll be able to start growing revenues fast. Now, excuse the busyness of this traction slide, but that's exactly what we've been at Susgrainable. Very busy since the launch of our new packaging mix. It got awareness. We launched a Kickstarter really fast and had over $16,000 in revenues. And this allowed us also to launch into retailers. Now we haven't stopped there. Baking season was on pause for the summer, but we prepped for a lot of marketing that is going out and gaining retailer interest, as well as interest in the corporate world for corporate gift baskets as we move into the gifting season. Our new website is also scheduled to launch December 1st, which should increase in online sales. It's also enabled us to have lots of conversations. We've targeted our sampling, and one of those people who's expressed serious interest is Sarah Remmer. She's a dietitian, has grown another Nova Scotia brand from a small Nova Scotia entity into a national retailer, and has relationships with other dietitians and other influencers throughout the network. She's also recently written a book, and consumers, our target consumer, trusts her. We've also got marketing already in the pipeline for awareness building, a community grown initiative cookbook, as well as innovative packaging that both honors our past and the future of sustainable packaging. The team is built up of myself and Clinton, the two co-founders. And while I myself have a lot of experience through my MBA with the circular economy and a lot of years with WestJet in terms of customer retention and customer growth, Clinton brings extensive experience with industrial farming, which has been pivotal over the past years, dealing with food safety issues and regulations in this space. We're also really well supported by the Spring Network and EAUBC's Hatch. Now, this wouldn't be a presentation where I'll look at competitors. So we know who we have to knock off the shelves and replace in the consumer mindset. And we're also aware of our competition in the US. We win on both local and upcycled. And so that leads us to our raise. We're opening our round soon for $500,000 on a safe. This will allow us to unlock up to $1.5 million in debt capital through FCC, BDC, and Van City. And will give us up to 12 to 18 months worth of runway to accomplish these milestones. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to future discussions.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was Susgrainable. And then take a look in the chat. You will see the link where you can give some feedback to Susgrainable. Now, all these company feedback forms, these companies really appreciate your feedback, critiques, positives, whatever advice you can give them. And of course, even better, if you're really interested in them, put your name and contact information. It's well appreciated. Isn't that right, Mark? Yes, a big nod. Right. So you will be able to quiz Mark later on after all the presentations are done, as we will have a dedicated network breakout room just for Susgrainable. Okay, next up is NeuPeak Robotics. And Tom, you're also supporting this company.
Thank you. So my cup runneth over today. So again, building on really important themes in agriculture that we see, one of them is labor, access to labor, cost of labor, and one of the areas where that labor is the most critical is around harvesting. And so Anshul and his team have moved into a very, very important trend, which is around robotics. They're building a robotic harvester initially focused on strawberries, but very clearly they're now in trials in indoor around cherry tomatoes and other indoor crops. The great thing about NeuPeak is that there is an absolute demand for this in the marketplace. People want this. When they create a robot that is the right price and the right efficacy, the demand will be there. And that's why you guys should pay attention. Take it away, Anshul.
Thank you for those kind words, Tom. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I'll begin the presentation then. Hi, everyone. I'm Anshul, CEO at NeuPeak Robotics. Today, agriculture is going through an existential crisis. Even with rising minimum wages, over 70% of farmers cannot find enough people to work on their fields. And this problem is extremely bad with strawberries because they're one of the most labor-intensive fruits you can pick. So much so that farmers today are forced to find the people to work on their fields in other countries like Mexico, and they have to pay for their flight, their visa, their food, accommodation to bring them over to their fields here. And even after jumping through all of those hoops, some of them are still choosing to let their crops rot on the fields because human labor is that expensive. Last year, over $3 billion were spent just to pick every single strawberry that you bought at a store. And this is a story that's not just unique to strawberries, but is repeated across the industry, be it tomatoes, raspberries, blueberries, you name it. We think the right solution to solving this problem is to build a fleet of fully autonomous and intelligent robots. Our robots are intelligent enough to not just pick the fruit, but collect useful data that informs farmers about how their crop is performing. Not only that, these robots are capable of picking at night, where if you pick at night because of the lower temperature, the strawberry has about twice the shelf life you would get when it's picked during the day. Farmers love this because this allows them to ship their strawberries further and make more profit margins with the same strawberry that's picked by our robot. Now, our ambition is to not just be a strawberry picking company, but to build a labor automation platform. And we do this by vertically integrating all core components of our technology from ground up. This includes designing and manufacturing our own robotic arms that have the same degrees of freedom as a human arm, which allows them to operate in both outdoor fields and indoor greenhouses, a universal soft gripper that can pick more than just strawberries, and a self-driving platform that is capable of working alongside human workers safely while it's collecting data. Now, the idea of using robots to pick strawberries is an obvious one, and what you see on the left is pretty much the direction the entire industry seems to have taken by building these large mechanized machines. Because of how large these machines are, they're expensive, and they're very expensive to operate and expensive to move from one field to the next. Because of this, they're only economically viable for large size farms. On the other hand, when one of these machines fails, the entire picking operation stops, which is a really bad thing for the farmer, because sometimes you only get 2 days to pick your entire crop. On the other hand, with the approach that we have taken, our robots are fully autonomous and can be moved from one field to the next, increasing their utility. And at the same time, if one robot fails, the rest of the fleet continues to work, thus offering farmers peace of mind and more reliability for the service that they get with us. Now, we are planning to make money on this by offering robot picking as a service, where we charge a fixed price for every pound of strawberries picked by the robot, and no other upfront investment is required by the farmer to get these robots on their fields. And even after this, because of this unique swarm robotics and self-contained robots approach we have taken, our robots can still pay themselves off within just 4 months of continuous operation on the field. And then we plan to offer a crop health monitoring service. In addition to that, these robots can be employed in a greenhouse for the times of the year when there are no strawberries out on the fields, thus increasing the utility of the robots and further reducing the payback period. Now, because of this unique approach we have taken, we can think beyond strawberries. So strawberries are our first stepping stone, but we soon want to follow that up with a CropSense AI subscription service that will allow farmers to gain more insights about their fields and eventually move into greenhouse harvesting and other crops and vegetables soon into the future. Now, here you can see the very same robot that you're seeing picking strawberries at a field, picking strawberries in an indoor greenhouse. And here you can see the very same robot again, picking tomatoes in an indoor greenhouse, further proving the scalability and the flexibility of the hardware that we have built here at NeuPeak. And we have moved incredibly quickly for a hardware company. We have already conducted several pilots with some of the largest berry growers in BC. And now we're gearing up to launch a pilot in California just next week. And we have partnered with one of the largest greenhouse manufacturers for tomatoes in Canada. We already have 3 commitment letters from growers and over 22 growers on our wait list. And our 20 robots that we can manufacture for next year are already booked up completely, which we are going to use for commercial validation of this technology. And to do this, we are raising our next round of $1 million that will allow us to build up this fleet, go into new markets like California, which have 90% of the total North American strawberry market, and expand our team into these new markets. So if you believe in our vision and you think this is the direction technology needs to go to feed the future of 11 billion people we'll have on this planet, please come talk to us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, NeuPeak Robotics. Everyone, please take a look in the chat. There is a link for which you can click and give your feedback on NeuPeak Robotics. Not only do you just check off the boxes as to how well they did, but if you have any burning questions, you could put them on there if you're too shy to speak up when they have their dedicated networking breakout rooms. So I'm sure Anshul will answer any questions in either medium. All right. Next up as a full presenter is Verigrain. And Verigrain, you are being supported by James Freeman. So James, could you tell us why we should be paying attention to Verigrain?
Awesome. Thanks, Telzel. I'm clearly not as busy as Tom, but I've certainly had the privilege of working with Verigrain for the last 4 years, so know the company fairly well. What you're about to hear is what Verigrain is doing to improve the process of grain sampling when there's a custody transfer of that grain. And they're going to do it through software and hardware. And I think there's 3 reasons why you'll want to pay close attention: team, traction, and timing. So the team Ken's going to present, and he and his senior team have decades of business experience. Ken's been involved in 5 early stage companies and exits. He's been very adept at securing non-dilutive funding, some of which hasn't been publicly announced. Kara Lee mentioned one of the accelerators, SVG Thrive. They're an alumnus of the Thrive Cohort 5 in the US. Now, this is before Thrive came to Canada. And he's got a strong group of advisors, board members, and shareholders who have helped him to accelerate his award-winning MVP. So that's team traction. There is a clear problem to solve in the market around how grain sampling gets done today, and in particular, how that data gets used and moved around the supply chain. And I think Ken's been able to validate his value proposition with both buyers and growers in the market. And he'll tell you about that. The third one is timing, and it relates a lot to what Steve was talking about earlier. We're starting to see some consolidations in the grain marketing space. One of the acquisitions that he talked about was GrainBridge by Bushel. And these consolidations, and for these to work, they need data. They need data to help inform buyer and grower decisions. And Verigrain is hitting product market fit at just the right time to feed these larger platforms. So with that, Ken, over to you.
Thanks, James. You said it so well, I'm not sure what else I've got to do here. But anyway, as
I don't think the pitch is done yet.
Okay, well, I'll fill in the details. As introduced, my name is Ken Jackson. I'm the CEO, also CTO, and a co-founder of Verigrain. So the problem that Verigrain solves is that today grain quality and quantity determination on the farm is relatively inaccurate, or I should say quite inaccurate and inefficient. So this results in, from a grower perspective, suboptimal grain value. They're getting lower revenue. Buyers and processors are dealing with inefficiencies and incurring additional costs. And then there's also limited or poor data for things like traceability, carbon verification, sustainability, and blockchain. So Verigrain is establishing a new standard. We're taking what's historically been an analog and manual process, and we've created a fully digital and automated solution to replace that. So Verigrain provides a detailed digital record of grain quality and quantity as it's loaded into and out of storage. We streamline the addition of grain characteristics analysis to that information, so you end up with accurate, trusted, easily shareable data, and ultimately a much greater certainty of delivery quality and traceability. So the data sources that we're getting are with grain samples. They can be manual or automatically acquired. The grain characteristics can come from user instruments, independent labs, or buyers. We just make it very easy to ingest all this information. And then that data can be very easily utilized by growers, buyers, brokers, farm management apps, banks, and insurers. So from a grower perspective, it's all about increased revenue. If you've got a better sample, you get better knowledge about what's in that sample, you can go and find better pricing or maximum pricing. You also get a preferred or trusted relationship with your buyer, because the grain you're selling them is the grain you're going to deliver. As well, you have the ability to bring traceability with that. So, with grain prices varying from 20% or more, depending on certain qualities and traceability, there's a lot of room for growers to pick up some substantial extra dollars. So if you're a buyer, it's all about decreased costs. You've got less customer and sample processing time, a much more efficient digital interaction with that customer, and the grain that you're purchasing is the grain that's going to get delivered, so you're able to realize operational efficiency increases. So with your average grain handling facility dealing with about 300 growers and putting through 10 million bushels or $100 million worth of grain annually, there's a lot of room there to improve things. So our business model is largely annual recurring revenue based. We have subscriptions on the apps, the proprietary consumables that go along with it. We take a margin on any sample analysis going through our platform. We've got sales of automated samplers and data monetization. So we're estimating a $240 million annual recurring revenue total addressable market in Canada and the United States. And that's from the growers as well as the buyers and processors. And we currently have no direct competition. We're forecasting revenue growth from about 1.2 million next year to 2026 being about 65 million, driven by about 12,000 subscribers. As James mentioned, our management team has some pretty deep experience or I should say substantial experience and some pretty deep roots in the agriculture sector. Our MVP is ready. We've got pilots running this fall with approximately 70 users. About 8 million bushels expected to go through the platform before harvest is completed. We have a number of channel and lab partners, some pretty substantial IP around our technology, and it is readily scalable. And last week, we just found out we're an AE50 winner of the 2021 Best Product category. So we are doing a $2.3 million pre-series A raise, and that is primarily targeted to accelerate commercialization, doing that through a convertible debt at a 10% interest rate with a 20% discount to the next price round. In 2022, we'll be targeting a $5 to $7 million Series A, and we expect to be acquired by a strategic partner within the next 2 to 4 years. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, everybody, you know the deal. Take a gander at the chat function. There should be a link there for you to click and to provide feedback to Ken and his team at Verigrain. So please fill out the form. This is very important. You know, at the end of every meeting, we gather up all the feedback forms and we send them directly to the companies. So whatever you say, it really does get received by the companies, and I'm sure they take it to heart. And if you're able to put your contact information, I'm sure that Verigrain team would be very happy to hear from you. Next up is we're going to hear again from ThisFish. And you heard a bit about them earlier in the first hour of this meeting. So I'm going to ask Frank Lefflar, who's been supporting them, to come up and tell us why we really should pay attention to ThisFish. Frank.
Thank you, Hazel. Well, I met Eric about 3 years ago at the New Ventures BC competition. I was really impressed with the problem that he was solving and how he is solving it in terms of a unique software ERP for fish processing plants. I was also impressed by his deep domain knowledge of the industry as he grew up in it. So over the past few years, I've seen him and his team make great progress. And recently they've added artificial intelligence, machine learning, and computer vision to further increase the value that they deliver for plant process operators. His software is in use in large fish processing plants in Asia and Latin America. And he has made great progress by extending his marketing and business development team to step up lead generation. And so really, this is a great time for us as angel investors to take this last opportunity to join his journey before he gets out of our pricing range, so to say. So I encourage you to reach out to Eric or myself to join a follow-on conversation here on chat. Just ping either of us, and we'd love to see you there, and you'll get an invite. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Frank. I think everybody can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yeah. So our mission as a company is really to drive profitability and sustainability in the seafood industry with better data. Digital, real-time, and actionable. So seafood is the most globally traded protein on Earth, but the information systems running the supply chains is pretty archaic. Most of the data is trapped on paper. And as we know, that creates all sorts of inefficiencies and errors, which often leads to non-compliance, which is a pretty serious issue in food processing. But, you know, in such a massive industry with millions of fishing vessels and farms on one side, and then millions of restaurants and retailers on the other, where do you start in digital transformation? Well, in the middle, there's only about 50,000 seafood processors. So in our view, this is the most critical node in the supply chain. It's really the data bottleneck. So at ThisFish, we've developed new software called Tally that enables seafood processors to digitize all their data in real time on the factory floor using IoT devices. and tablet computers. We currently have 15 customers and about $26,000 monthly recurring revenue. We've proven that we can scale our technology across a global fragmented market. And recently, the Republic of the Marshall Islands and the Nature Conservancy teamed up to launch a new social enterprise that will be procuring all the tuna for Walmart's private label brand. And I'm proud to announce that we will be the technology providers for the Marshall Islands. So why do customers buy our software? Well, it cuts labor costs of data management and collection. It also enables real-time process control, which is really about managing raw material costs, and it strengthens compliance through electronic traceability. And the reason I'm presenting today is because we're launching two large strategies that we want to get funding for. And the first one is really to increase the value that we get from the data that we're collecting with our customers, and thereby increase our revenue. And as Frank mentioned, we're largely doing that through artificial intelligence. About a year ago, we launched an AI-enabled app called TallyBot, which we can embed throughout our Tally software. And we can program TallyBot with standard or machine learning algorithms to automate many tasks in the factory, including quality control checks or alerts. And we're currently working on some machine learning algorithms for predictive analytics, such as yield prediction in the factories. And we've embedded TallyBot directly into the interface of the software and given it a bit of personality. And the reason for that is we want to communicate to the workers on the shop floor that TallyBot is like their digital helper, kind of like the R2-D2 of seafood processing. So the second initiative we want to finance with our capital round is to expand into new markets. So Japan is the second largest seafood market in the world after the United States. There are about 8,500 seafood processors in the country, and they actually face some really unique challenges that are unique to Japan. First, per capita consumption of seafood in the world has actually gone up by 27% in the last decade, but it's actually declined in Japan by about 35%. The declining population and aging population also means that there's much lower worker productivity in the country than North America. So this has all led to lower gross margins in the seafood sector, about 12% lower than the food sector in general. So you could increase the competitiveness of Japanese seafood through exports, but the problem is only 4% of Japanese processors are certified to export to the United States and even less to the EU. So we believe that our Tally software could really help out with a lot of efficiency gains in the seafood processing sector in Japan, and also better enable them to meet a lot more of the global trade traceability regulations. We recently participated in Canada's Trade Accelerator for Japan, and we were one of the winners of JETRO's Japan Society 5.0 Challenge and participated in a trade show in Japan. And we're currently have been selected by IRAP to participate in another accelerator program in Japan. And we're just about to sign our very first channel partnership with a technology and food company, which is deep roots in the Japanese seafood industry and is based in Hokkaido in Sapporo. So as I mentioned, we're really looking to raise $1 million in this round, and we'll be putting some of the money into our product roadmap around AI and also BI, and the rest of it will be focused on boosting our sales, both in Latin America, Southeast Asia, but also Japan, as I mentioned, which is going to be a very lucrative market because we'll be one of the first movers into the Japanese market. So thank you for the time. I'm looking forward to the breakout groups.
Thank you so much, ThisFish. Eric from ThisFish. Everybody take a look at the chat function. You should see the link that will take you to the company feedback form. Please do fill it out. This is really important to all the companies. You know, we surveyed the companies at VANTEC over the years, and we found that VANTEC is one of the very first stops that these companies make when they go on their capital raising round. So this, you know, any feedback that you give them would be taken to heart, and it would just be used to improve their pitch. So please do fill it out. Even better, you know, give your phone number and name so that they can contact you and give you a real deep dive. All right, next up is Wine Crush. Frank, you're supporting this company as well. How about telling us about Wine Crush?
Yes, I've followed Wine Crush for the past 4 or 5 years, but really things got very exciting, I think, in the last year when Kirk joined them, helped them hone their strategy. The problem that they're solving is they're basically upcycling winery byproducts, the pulp from wineries, and they're turning that into a better for you, high value food ingredient, an alternative to flavor enhancers like salt. So really, they're solving two very valuable, but also, as we saw in the investment trend presentations, some technology in there that has great interest from both industry and investors, as it reduces the carbon footprint of the industry and it produces healthier novel foods. So this is a large global opportunity, and the company is basically ready to go to market. And I won't spill the beans any further and hand it over to Kirk here. Here again, we'd love to see you in the breakout room, and I'm sure we'll have a follow-on meeting and love to see you there.
Brilliant. Thank you, Frank. Hello, everyone. My name is Kirk Moyer, and I am the CEO of Wine Crush. And our mission is to valorize agricultural side streams, obviously starting with winery derivatives, using the power of fermentation. So I like to start with the question why. I think we all know that transformation is coming to our global food chain. So it's really a question of why for Wine Crush. So in addition to being able to reduce food waste and the related greenhouse gases, we also have the opportunity to put a tremendous amount of very nutritious calories back into the food chain with actually no additional agricultural load on the planet. And we have the opportunity to produce a material shift left effect for the alternative protein industry. So it's not surprised that alternative protein industry, or the plant-based food industry more specifically, is our beachhead market, our target market. Harvard does a great job of studying this market, so we like to paraphrase their bottom line, which is plant-based food is good for the planet, but not always good for our health. But then when you look at the deficiencies list, which is actually from Boston Consulting Group, you realize that nutrition is only one of many, many gaps that this industry is trying to close with traditional animal-based protein. So there's a long way to go. So that's where we come in. We're in the business of transformation. We upcycle agricultural side streams, as Frank said, starting with winery derivatives. It's the whole biomass, the skins, the seeds, and the sediment. And we turn that into high performance flavor enhancers with alchemic powers. So we're setting the bar pretty high for ourselves. But one example of that alchemic power is being able to reduce the sodium content in a typical plant-based food formulation by up to 80%. Another example of that alchemy is being able to extend shelf life of many food formulations by up to 60%, thanks to the antioxidant properties of the polyphenols found in abundance in our food ingredient. Of course, we face significant competition. They generally are all single function ingredients across the price, performance, and nutrition curve. But when it comes to a multi-function ingredient that can deliver outstanding price performance as well as outstanding nutrition, we're quite unique in the marketplace. That advantage is all driven by our intellectual property around our fermentation advantage. So our fermentation advantage actually allows us to save about 90% of our costs compared to typical drying processes. It delivers a 2x nutritional advantage and actually addresses a lot of the astringency or bitterness associated with typical drying processes. And again, is subject to a protectable IP advantage in the form of both patents, of which we have 3 filed, 2 of them are international, and a growing family of trade secrets around our fermentation starter. And we'd be very, very happy to talk more about our IP advantage under non-disclosure. But we also see our focus on agricultural sustainability to be a very, very critical competitive advantage for ourselves. So when you do the math for discarded wine derivative alone, the agricultural side stream from winemaking, it's a 50 megaton per year problem that the world needs to solve pronto. It's all based around methane from mishandled agricultural side streams, as you can see in the picture in the middle. That's actually from an existing winery in the Okanagan, and it's very typical of materials handling in the Okanagan, unfortunately. On the ground, this means that our input material is very, very plentiful, and it means, more importantly, that our supply partners are very, very motivated to address their carbon footprint problem. Turning to business model, ours is very, very simple. We are in the business of selling food ingredient at a price per kilogram basis. 2021 has been all about validation, validation of our product, validation of our price, and validation of our process. And we now have processing capabilities up to 1,000 tons, or approximately $12 to $18 million. So we're very happy with that, as well as the gross margin associated with that at 50%. We're going to spend the next 2 years optimizing our process. And by 2024, we expect to be expanding beyond kind of the microcosm of the Okanagan to other winemaking geographies, as well as other agricultural side streams. Looking at our traction, we've really been focusing on customer validation and customer engagement this year. We're already in 15 SKUs across 5 challenger brands. We're also in 30 different formulation trials with very large prospects, including Zoglos and Kraft Heinz, both of whom have given us extremely positive reviews on our product. We're actually quite ahead of schedule with respect to international. We've sort of been pulled into international. And we have letters of intent signed with 3 distributors in Spain, the US, and the UK. And we're already working on 1 large wine producer in Australia around a pilot project, again, addressing their carbon footprint problem. Our 15 design wins or SKUs will drive us towards a $2.5 million revenue year next year, and we'll be heading towards $50 million across 5 geographies by 2026. That said, we're already proven in a wide variety of food formulations, not just the plant-based food industry, including prepared meats, dairy, and breads, as well as sauces. That long list of food formulations where we've been proven, in addition to the fact that winemaking is truly a global enterprise, means we have a very, very scalable business opportunity here. But sticking with the theme of scale, this is actually market research data from Boston Consulting Group Blue Horizon. And it's indicating that the plant-based food market alone is going to be expanding by 14% per year from 2020 through 2035. So conservatively, this market alone represents north of $1 billion opportunity for Wine Crush by 2035. So not surprisingly, we are going after this market hard. We are focusing on raising our C2 of $2.7 million by the end of the quarter, very much focused on building out our business development team. So with that, let me say thank you. And as Frank said, I look forward to your questions in the breakout room.
Great. You have lots to say in the breakout room. Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you.
All right, everybody take a look at the chat function. This is where you fill out your feedback and it will go back to Kirk and the rest of the Wine Crush team. This is really important to them. Very, very important. Okay, next up we have our final full presenter. And you heard from Michael Riddick earlier in the panel discussions in the first hour of this meeting. So we're going to ask his angel sponsor, Mike Rodenberg, to step up and tell us why we should pay some extra attention to Lucent.
Thanks, Zazel. I first was introduced to Lucent and Michael Riddick about this time last year. I participated in the due diligence team as part for eFund, which subsequently made an investment, and I made one myself personally, both then as well as in their most recent kind of follow-on round. Lucent's an interesting business because they've developed a novel micronutrient fertilizer that solves a number of key problems associated with existing micronutrient fertilizers available on the marketplace that relate to the bioavailability of micronutrients, and it creates a great opportunity for producers to see improvements in yield, drought resistance, and a wide variety of other benefits associated with their using their product. So needless to say, I'm a pretty enthusiastic investor and supporter of Lucent. So without taking too much more time and take any of the Michael's presentation away, I'll pass it over to him. Thanks.
Okay, Michael, you've got the floor.
What could I say about Lucent? I think, you know, they've made some pretty interesting improvements in their process over the last 12 months, and you know, their product is they're working on patents around 25 different countries around the world, and has a significant advantage over existing micronutrient fertilizers. I will try my best to try and describe the process, but essentially existing micronutrient fertilizers really are only bioavailable to the plant for 2 to 3 weeks of the growing season, and so it doesn't create a great opportunity for plants to absorb the micronutrients. The Lucent product called Soileos has an opportunity to be bioavailable because it enhances the microbiome and present within the soil, and that allows the plant to take up the micronutrients throughout the entire growing season. And what's really quite impressive about them is they've shown some very significant improvements in yield across a broad range of different crop types, growing regions throughout North America, and particularly coming off of their trials this year, they have shown that it's improved drought resistance as well. And you can even see, it's too bad Michael isn't here to kind of demonstrate and show you some of the improvements in food quality that they get out of the growing season, but he'll show you three or four husks of corn relative to the grower standard from a particular trial, and you can just visually see that the Soileos treated product is visually larger, more robust. And it's just an better overall product. The other interesting qualitative improvement that their product has done is when you actually consume the product, the increased micronutrients embedded within the products itself actually make the product taste better. And so there's a hope that in addition to this creating an opportunity for our farmers to see improved drought resistance and improved yield, that maybe they can even charge a premium for their product because what they're producing tastes better. This is all from memory. I apologize.
No, but I believe Mike Reddick is back online.
Oh, excellent. Michael, please take it away.
Well, I'm first of all, I'm really sorry. I had a mishabit here with my scheduling. So I believe you did the whole presentation there, Mike.
Pretty much. You got probably like 3 minutes left.
Well, I'm going to be in the breakout room. I know that a whole lot of people have seen our pitch a few times. What I can do is really quickly give an update where we are. So as I mentioned earlier, we closed a $4 million round in last month. Besides Woodiv and eFund, VANTEC, and local investors like Mike and others, we were able to bring in Agtech, which is a new Agtech fund out of Regina. The next is Agtech, run by Sean O'Connor. And the other VC that we brought on is called Amateon, which is a venture capital fund out of Germany. And they are also Agtech focused. Both companies want to participate in the Series A as well. They're really excited to participate in the current round. With the funds that we raised this year, it allows us to operate the company till summer next year, manufacture product, bring it in the hands of farmers, and start building a 20-ton facility that we're looking to build in Regina. So we're looking to scale up from a 2-ton pilot plant that we have right now in Coquitlam to a 20-ton facility that we want to get operational by October next year. The other big milestone that we have ahead of us is we applied for other Protein Industries Canada Supercluster grant to help with that scale-up process in collaboration with AGT Foods, our previous partner. So that is something that hopefully will come together in the next few weeks. Other than that, we are just finalizing our trial results right now. I mean, the trials are almost, the harvest is almost finished. The downside of the trials of this year is that we were dealing with a severe drought, as you probably know. Regardless of that, we have seen positive impact despite the drought in several crops, specifically corn. We've seen like better development of the corn ears, yield increases in wheat and some other crops. So it's not a loss year, even though I think it's like, what is it, 1,000-year event or something? It did give us an opportunity to see how the product performs with drought. And even farmers that tested out our product where the yield increase was not as much as they hoped to see because of this, have expressed interest to move forward with this product in the 2022 and 2023 season, because they believe in the concept of a non-polluting, carbon neutral fertilizer alternative for what they're using right now. So I think that is that's quite interesting to hearing back from those people. I would say that's, I guess, my summary for today, but happy to talk further in the breakout room.
All right, that's wonderful. Good recovery. All right, everyone. I believe there is a link in the chat function where you could give your feedback to Michael for Lucent. And we're now heading into the breakout rooms. Oh, by the way, while they're doing that, all that magic behind the scenes, I want to give a shout out to the VANTEC team. It's Wendy Tan and Jackson Wu who's been doing all the hard work in the background, working the networking breakout rooms, putting up the timer. And Peter Wilkins has been taking notes. He'll be the one that'll be compiling all the feedback forms. Of course, my colleague and Frank Leffler, who's been instrumental in putting together the programming today for the Agrifood Tech. All right, so thank you to all the participants and presenters. And this recording will be available in about next week sometime. So just watch your inboxes, we'll let you know.